Brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. What another terrific Thursday's edition of Talk Today as we invite you to be a part of a discussion and a chance and opportunity that we get that we can highlight and showcase the excellent talent that we have in our country, the gifting of our young people, the opportunity to celebrate, especially in a time such as this. What better way than here on Talk Today? Stay tuned and join us after the break.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. And if there was ever a day you felt like, you know what, today isn't the day to come to work, well, I'm glad I never, and I pray I never ever will, face one of those days. Because every time I get up and think of the guests, I have the opportunity to not just learn and laugh, but to share the love and to be encouraged and inspired by what is within our shores. Glenn and Langer, thank you so much for always championing the arts, but also for the positive nature in which you encourage and nurture our youth and the developing talent that we have here. And we can build many structures. We can have all these edifices. We can even plant trees sometimes, and as important as they are, if we don't sow seed in amongst our young, we don't have a future.
that's absolutely right. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sterling Dwayne, for agreeing to host an amazing session with some incredibly talented, gifted young Caymanian musicians today who, at very short notice agreed to join in on the discussion, and I'm sure they'll introduce themselves later on, but we're really, really excited to be here.
Perfect. And before I ask, Jaden and Benil to sort of, if you don't mind, I sort of know of each of you in a different capacity for a while, observing, whether it's through parents or whether it's through, education or whether it's through some other endeavor. But if you would allow us as the listening audience to get a preview and an insight into you and who you are and the like, if you don't mind. I know as a people we're the most unwilling to share about ourselves. And I'm equally in that same vein. But it isn't just about humility. It's about serving as an example to inspire others, to encourage them, and to say, listen, pursue that thing that you have this passion for. Maybe it's a gifting like I think both of you have, Neil, we'll talk about that in a second. But before I do, Glenn, could I ask of you, as a preview and perhaps even a prelude to our discussion, the importance of this, their success to date, the programming that they're in, what that means not just for them, but for the country. Would you do that for us, please?
Okay, so just so people really appreciate what our students and young people are really achieving right now, one of the things that Cayman does for many of our young people is to sort of give them opportunities to develop, and that's something we're very, very proud of. But the real icing on the cake comes when they get the exposure to travel overseas and get training overseas and be amongst other people their age, younger and older, who are also doing amazing things. And being in that kind of environment can be extremely inspirational. I went through exactly the same thing, in my teenage years, and that transformed my entire outlook on what was possible. So every time I see a young talented Caymanian who is interested in going overseas to study or is studying or has come back from studying, I know exactly what value that represents, and the fact that they're making an impact overseas and letting people know that the Cayman Islands is producing the top stuff. I think for me that is something that's invaluable.
Well, something that I may ask you to come back to, if you hopefully my memory doesn't fail me. You had shared way back when that you came about this route. You're also an engineer.
Oh yes, that was
right?
my first
thing, right? And I remind me that I want to ask about. I wrote it down, engineering. I think that's what I wrote. I can't see it. I can't read my own handwriting. Okay. And the reason why I say that is that for so long, my perspective, and with great deference to all and sundry, especially our parents and educators, if I had this wrong, my perception has been that we never focused on sports and arts to the extent that I think we should. We hear teachers complain, my word is complain, that there is not enough time in the day because they got to get through the curriculum for these things as much as they want to develop it, encourage it, help to nurture it. But then as parents, we're driving, well, no, my daughter needs to do her math. That flute, that thing can come later. That can be a byproduct. Fast forward, 50 years later, we're producing the talents of the Jetas and the Benils and the like. But then if we cast our minds back to the Lamis and the others of the day, the Jamiches, these were great musicians. The football players like Leslie Smith and the bunch of them. What could we be? So, Miss Hannah, if you don't mind, could we start with you first? A brief introduction. Maybe we'll talk more about it. Be as comfortable, be as, feel as welcome as you want, and know that, I'm a champion. I admire you from the time you don your black belt to, all days after, right? Could you share with us, Miss Jaden Hannah? Good afternoon.
Yes. Good afternoon. Well, yeah, you heard it. My name is Jaden, and I am 19. I go to Berklee College of Music in Boston. I'm a vocalist. I'm going to be studying professional music in musical theater and music production. So that's good. I am in my 3rd semester, going into my 4th semester. And COVID has not been nice, especially with how university works, and you basically in music school you kind of have to be in person in order to really get the whole experience. But we've survived. I've survived, and it's a good opportunity that I was able to go overseas, and in January we'll be able to go overseas again.
And if it's okay, I'll say this now just in case, if I ask or comment and you say, well, no, I don't want to talk about it, that's not, go right ahead and just remind me but I want parents in particular and prospective students to appreciate that this is just a time in transition. As big as the despots may become, as, sometimes prolific as we may see in this pandemic, we're still people. We still crave and desire and absolutely need the social engagement. We still need to be able to pursue our passions. We still need to be able to bring joy to people. And for me, radio is that thing, to listen to it. But it's even better to, in person, whether it's your, very young child that is making noise with the pots and pans, and as a parent, you're doting and encouraging and nurturing, even though your ears are screaming. I feel bad for my parents because they allowed us to make all sorts of noise in the house. But we were safe and we were happy, and they felt, wow, at least they're healthy. So that's the sort of thing. Mr. Miller, from that perspective, if there was ever a picture of the international superstar, or the person who walked amongst us with a great sense of humility, knowing his gifting, Neil, that's you, man. Good afternoon.
That's quite the introduction. So I'm Benil, and I'm basically passionate about the creative pursuit. So music is obviously what I do mostly, but anything creative I end up being a part of. Piano is what I started off playing. It ventured off into other things because I played in church, and there were always better piano players than me, so I ended up playing drums or bass or something else, but anything to do music. And then I went to Berklee, and I did professional music. I completed that degree in 2015. And now I'm back here. I have my hands in a little bit of everything. I'm educating, I'm a recording engineer, producing, doing a little creative COVID content. And that's what's been happening.
All right, I gotta maybe ask to revisit that thing, and hopefully, I keep saying that us as parents, whether we are young parents, our child is just about to be birthed into this world, whether a child is in the teenage, realm where they think, well, like I do, still a teenager, we know everything, right? Or whether they're in transitioning in the sense that, am I going to go to university? What am I going to do after university, or whatever that pursuit is? We need to be the champion, but we also want to do it. So from the perspective, it's been 5 years since you come, and had I not been reminded of the schooling, the academic sort of pursuit, you would just say, here's a guy just moving about. But watching you perform is obviously there's not just the God's gifting upon you, but there's a desire to develop it in such a way that it creates this craftsman, like I see in Glenn, and brings me back to the notion of the engineering, academic, rigorous sort of discipline that is applied to what I think is now one of my favorite instruments because of you, the steel drum. Prior to that, I saw it, admired it, but I didn't think, could it be this classical thing? You've elevated it in my eyes for me.
So, I'll be honest with you, I'm always inspired by the creativity of someone like Benil. I see a lot of the stuff he does online. It just blows my mind, and I know this is just the beginning because he's on this amazing journey of creativity and development, and he's deeply passionate about it. And I like to see the impact it's having on the community and the impact it's having on other musicians around him. One of the things he does for us at the Cayman Arts Festival is he tutors a jazz group, and this is a group of elite players who are just so inspired by what he has done, and he spends so much time with them, and it's amazing to see the journey that they have come on just by being in that group, being in a room together, sort of sharing ideas, being creative, exploring, experimenting. So that's for me, at UCCI where they rehearse, it's just wonderful to be in my office and hearing this amazing stuff going on. And these are kids at John Gray, at Clifton Hunter, they're really doing, this is extracurricular obviously, but we are very happy to support what they're doing. And speaking of Jaden, when she came to the attention of visiting performers for the cabaret shows that we've had from New York, and when she performed in front of our audience at the Cayman Arts Festival, and because she'd been given some pointers from the visiting artists, and just she brought the house down. The show wasn't even done yet, but people were on their feet. And they've taken her under their wings and given her opportunities to perform in New York, and most recently online when they had this amazing thing which we did some recording with UCCI TV at UCCI, which was presented as part of their show, going globally. And again, she and Kalindra, who was the other person who was also picked here from Cayman, are telling the rest of the world what's happening here in the Cayman Islands. So for me, both these guys who are both at Berkeley just tells me just what amazing things lie in store for us here in Cayman, and they really are doing phenomenal things. For those of you who don't appreciate what's happening locally, these are international stars in their own right, and the best of yet is still to come. And so one thing we like at the Cayman Arts Festival is we have these different events which they normally will perform in, they will support, they will work with some of the younger talent as well. And hopefully Duncan will be joining us later on. And the idea of this interview came from Fran McConvey, who said, hey, this is a Berkeley thing. There's all these Berkeley kids who've gone from Cayman and gone to Berkeley, and they're doing amazing things. So wouldn't it be nice to tell the rest of the community what these young stars are up to? So that's kind of one of the things that we're very, very passionate about. So I really encourage people to go out and listen to opportunities to where you get to hear these young performers perform, support their work. Here at the Cayman Arts Festival, with the COVID challenges we're having, we're looking local. We're going local. We're celebrating the best of what's local. And that's something that I think is an opportunity that should not be missed. And we encourage people to come out to our events. Like tonight, we have one at the library between 6 and 7, and there's another one next week as well, which again that's going to be at St. George's Anglican Church. But at all these different events, we have these young performers performing, and because of COVID, Duncan is back. He's in his final semester. Jaden's here. They have this wonderful talent here, so it's really nice that we can showcase what's happening.
I know, as you said, but bringing the house down. I brought the house down once too, but I was romping with a maul and a wrecking ball, and that was a whole other thing. Right? When we come back from the break, Jaden, if you could share with us, what is like studying there now being sort of here, not only because of the nature of your work, but doing it long distance online isn't the same thing. And Benny, while you were there, and now the 5 years since you're back here, some of the creative pursuits to you in how do we nurture and develop, how do we get more people on board to appreciate that it's not just the people in finance or in law or in medicine or other things, as important as they are, that we need this as well. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. Maybe we can even have a little jam session. I just kidding. I'm going to pause and take a break though. When we come back, if you want to call and share your thoughts, go right ahead. Paul Cal sits across the road from us, What a fella he is, man. Hair like mine, always just shining. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Representing Pentair, Myers Water Systems for over 50 years. Best pumps, tanks, and accessories. Myers Pumps, best prices. Besides household pumps, we carry irrigation pumps, grinder pumps, transfer pumps, and more. Parts, service and repairs, installation optional. Find us at Puritan Place, 337 Eastern Avenue. Turn left to end the building. Contact Mowbray on 526-1038, 526-1030, or 926-1038.
The deadline for the Proud of Them nominations has been extended to October 31st. So if you know of any young person between the ages of 10 and 25 that excel in academics, business, culture, community service, careers, or sports, visit youthservices.ky to get them nominated for a billboard today.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. Are you currently a member and interested in management of your pension plan? If so, consider volunteering to be elected as a trustee at our upcoming extraordinary general meeting to be held on the 4th of November. Please visit our website, chamberpension.ky, or email pensions@chamberpension.ky for further details. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Your Radio Cayman 7 a.m. news, brought to you by Cayman National, proudly serving the Cayman Islands since 1974. Visit www.caymannational.com for up-to-date information for all your financial needs and follow us on social media.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks again for joining us, and thanks too for this amazing opportunity to be able to sit here and facilitate these discussions. And if I can say that each day I get a chance to not just grow a little more because my waistline is expanding, but grow a little more because my mind, my interests, the love for my country is ever increased when I see what we have before us. As we talk to Glenn and Angle, Benil Miller and Miss Jade and Hannah, my mind is immediately cast to the fact that we've come a long way. We probably got a long way to go, but as long as we're continually moving forward in a positive way that inspires and encourages, but nurtures, so that our people can say, you know what, whether like Glenn, I can get into engineering, or like some other friends who are in finance, accounting, but they still see the passion and the pursuit of the artistic creation, and now that's becoming respected. Not as a hobby, not as that thing you better give up so you can get a real job, but as something viable and respected. Glenn, that is a huge leap forward for our society.
It is a huge leap forward, but if you just were to take, I know we're struggling with COVID worldwide for all the musician friends I have. Literally things have ground to a halt, with orchestras not being allowed to rehearse, or most things being sort of done online with online broadcast, but people are not able to have that live musical experience. Little tiny pockets in Vienna, in Spain, I still see some of my friends having these opportunities to still perform. But many things are still being cancelled because of these challenges, and the industry is struggling right now because of this unprecedented challenge. And it's not just the music industry. I mean, lots of other industries are struggling as well. But that aside, if you were to just cast your mind globally to see some of the contributions that many of these artists make to the GDP of many of these economies, you take a very simple example. You take the film industry. Think of all the amount of the billions of dollars that come from the fact that people are actually going to the cinema to watch a movie that was actually had a soundtrack that was created by musicians and people who that's what they did for a living. You begin to realize the impact that you can actually have globally by choosing a career in this particular field. But for me, I was also thinking about the fact that for people who are thinking of perhaps I could go into the performing arts. So I could go into a career as a performer or as a producer or as a composer, for example. There are lots of opportunities for people who really want to distinguish themselves at that level, particularly globally. When you think about the fact that you can create value, you can create something that's actually quite valuable and accessible to people who will pay quite a lot of money for it. And the other thing for parents who are thinking of this, I always say to them, allow your child to have the opportunity to excel. And that opportunity to excel will create value within itself. I've never come across anybody who really truly excelled and was not valued for that.
And who wasn't happy.
And also who wasn't happy, yeah. But I'm looking at this from the point of view of people say, why am I going to let my child do this? They're not going to ever, get anywhere in it. But that's not for you to decide. That's for the child to have a go at it. You don't want to not have a go and say, hopefully I'd had a go. That's how I approached it. I thought, let me give it a go. I was 15.
What? Yeah.
Let's see where it takes me.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been quite a challenge, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's made me quite creative in how I apply my talents, and match them with the industry and what the industry needs are, the gaps that I can actually see out there in what's going on, and the young people sitting here in the studio are no different. They're all coming from very different perspectives, and they all have their individual gifts and talents, which are very different from mine. And they will chart their own course, whatever that is going to be. But they're quite fulfilled, and they're working very, very hard and creating value. I always keep saying this, and they can tell you what their journey has been like so far. But I still think, what they're doing is phenomenal, and it's being noticed internationally as well.
And that's great for the individual, but I think we need to appreciate it's also great for the country, because through the example, instead of looking to the international artists, whether it's sports, whether it's in academics, or whether it's in some of the creative pursuit, those are people that we may or may not encounter. But if it's your classmate, if it's the person that lives in the district over, chances are it's probably easier to relate to that person.
That's very
and
true.
Interact with that person. Miss Hannah, if I could ask you then, to date, what has it been like? I mean, first question. Did you always want to be where you are in relation to the arts and performing and this whole creative process? Or were you sort of, okay, I'm good at it, but I think I'm going to get into medicine, or I'm going to become an educator, or, you may elevate yourself and become a talk show host, but just kidding. Just kidding.
From a very young age, a lot of people around me saw that I had talent, and they were always encouraging, especially within church. I would always participate in the choir, and as I got older, started participating in the junior praise team and the senior praise team. So a lot of people around me were always saying you have a good voice, you should pursue a career in that. And also my mom, she said that she kind of saw it in me from since I was very small. And she said that I think my daughter's gonna be some type of musician. She's, even if it's a vocalist, and she started to push me. She started to make me perform for other things like NCFA, And that is where I started to really grow a love for music. And I started to realize that, oh my gosh, I can do this as a career. So I started to see where I could go with this. And eventually it got me to where I am today, which is at Berklee. And going to Berklee was a big step for me because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm coming from a small island and I'm going to go there and I'm going to see so many amazing people from all different parts of the world. So how would I, as someone from a very, very small island, make a big impact globally? And say that, hey, you guys don't know that we exist, but, we're really good too. And I also wanted to show that, to show to the rest of the country, like, hey, you need to support musicians. You need to support whatever anybody wants to do. Even if it's like, say, for example, we have a few boys out there who are pursuing a rap career. And recently, one of them is about to hit 500,000 views on YouTube for his song. So there's things like that don't get noticed, and his name is Relo GB. So, just gonna throw that out there. Just gonna throw that out there. He already hit 500,000 or he's about to hit 500,000 views, and it's just like we need to be able to. And I'm sure that he has also found it very hard for people to support you. So it's just like, I just wanted to be an example that, like, if you support us, if you support any young person, that, you'll see what can come out of it. You'll see the benefits. And it's really nice.
Before I ask Benil something similar, Michelle, if you don't mind, sometimes we as parents push our children. Sometimes we're reluctant to push because we say that if we push them too hard, they'll push back. Or our own friends would say, well, you're a little hard on her. You need to give her a little more space, or whatever this thing is. But thankfully, you have that loving, supportive family unit that just encourages you, make sure that you get where you need to get. If it's not in a position on you, if it's not intrusive, that balance between the academics, the schoolwork, the other activities, whether it's sport or otherwise, and then pursuing, thankfully, the ability to be in the creative sector, the singing and the performing and the like. If you can cast your mind back to way back when you were young, honestly, what was that like? Was it you embraced it and saw the time management? Was it a reluctance on your part? What can it be? I mean, that discipline, that sacrifice, that balance between this, and this. What was that like, looking back now?
Well, when I was younger, I pretty much had my toe dipped in everything.
When she's 19, okay, so when she was younger.
I did sports. Did a lot of sports.
Yep.
Did football, basketball, flag football, you name it, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then in school, I was in John Gray High School, graduated with honors. It's just, for me, I was just enjoying school. I was just enjoying my childhood. So it wasn't really something where it was like, oh, I'm stressed. I didn't really start to gain some stress until I went to A-levels.
Yeah.
And I started...
That's the teachers. Sorry.
Yeah. And I started realizing that, okay, I'm starting to get to university level. And that's not to say that John Gray's easy or anything, because it's not. It's really not. But... it's like, when you start to really get up there and see that, okay, you're starting to really go into your career, you start to get that sort of stress where it's like, okay, what do I really want to do? Where do I want to go from here? So all I did basically was, I had to start cutting out some of the stuff. Yeah. So I had to start cutting out extracurricular activities like sports that I used to do, and focus on my academics because, A-levels is kind of hard. And and then that's where I also started to realize that, okay, I need to, start to really focus on, what university I want to go to. So I had to cut out a lot of this stuff, but it was worth it.
Yeah, whether you wish to respond to it. And I'm glad you shared it. I didn't give you the script, because you're not just an adult, not just because you're eloquent and, independent and very, very gifted intellectually and otherwise. I may share some things, but the guy across the street who controls the strings, you see how he's moving the chords and pulling the board? Probably got to take a break, so maybe he's saving me for my comment, but maybe I'll revisit that on the way back. But Neil, ask you the similarly, your journey to date. What is it like? What lies ahead? And then we can talk about the performances and the thing. And maybe as parents, we start to become the champions that we are. But to date, we're reluctant to do because we don't want to offend the sensibilities of other people. But in the day, this is our flesh and blood, right? All right, let's pause and take a break. When we come back, more talk today.
Introducing the new Digicel Prime bundles, better than anything we've offered before, with more data than ever, more music on the music, more live sports on Sportsmax, more movies on Playgo, more video chats on BIP. With the new Digicel Prime bundles, it's never been easier to get more digital experiences, plus extra data. Get 50 gigabytes with a 7-day bundle. So much data, so much fun. Buy in My Digicel app today, the Caribbean's fastest mobile network. Digicel, better together.
My journey.
The Wesleyan Holiness Churches of the Cayman Islands would like to announce their 8th annual Cayman Islands District Wesleyan Youth Convention, running the 21st to Sunday the 25th of October at the Cradock Ebank Civic Center in Northside. Opening ceremonies on the 21st at 7:30 p.m. with the convention 7:30 p.m. nightly Wednesday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, 10:30 a.m. on Sunday. This year's theme is Why I Am a Christian, #MyJourney, featuring homegrown speakers Caitlin Bush, Latoya Francis, Donnie McCoy, and Gavin Lothian. Each night will also feature local talent from across the island of Grand Cayman. Don't miss out on this amazing opportunity to grow in your faith and have a great time doing so. Bus service will be provided nightly from Georgetown at the A.L. Thompson's parking lot. Call Cassandra Ebanks on 925-1930 or Pastor Conway King on 916-5372 for further information. Nightly services will also be live on the Northside Wesleyan Holiness Church Facebook page.
My journey.
Hi, this is Danny Coleman, Director of Hazard Management Cayman Islands. We're about to enter the height of the hurricane season, and given that we've already seen a significant amount of activity in the Atlantic this year, we're really asking the public to get ready for the next few months. Some tips of getting ready: be informed and know your risks associated with the high winds as well as storm surge. Find out how high your home is above the sea level and the flooding history. If you have any new buildings or roads that have been constructed near you, this could impact levels of flooding that you may not have previously experienced. Determine where you, your family and your pets will shelter in a storm. Know where the public shelters are, and if you have medical needs, be sure to go to a shelter that is a designated emergency medical centre. Make sure your home, car and property insurance, as well as your passports and other important documents, are up to date and that you have copies and photographs in a secure and dry location. If you have a boat, please decide now where and how you will secure it. Check your hurricane shutters, and if you don't have them, consider purchasing plywood. Stock up on hurricane supplies, non-perishable items including prescribed medication and personal sanitation items. And for more information, please visit our website at www.caymanprepared.ky. Be informed, make a plan, be prepared and stay safe, Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, Mike. And in the excellent company of Glenn and Anger, I think he'll say to me, two individuals that help us to showcase what a country can produce and what a country should embrace. Benita Miller and Jaden Hanna. Maybe, if nothing else, as parents, we can share and celebrate with you and your family your accomplishments. So that as the decades unfold, we can look like we do to the greats of Bob Marley and Jimmy Cliff, whether Otis Redding, or even Charlie Pride. I mean, I like my Charlie Pride. Nobody be telling me nothing, but we can look within and say, you see him? I used to go to school with his grandfather. We could speak in a way that brings a personal touch and experience. Been ill for you, growing up, performing now, and all of this transpired. What is it like? What has it been like? And before I ask you as to what you hope it'll be like, but those two things first.
I don't recall the moment I started playing music. Like my dad's side of the family especially is very musical. I found out that my great grandfather played the violin, my grandfather played the harmonica, my dad plays guitar. And like even when my grandfather passed away, all the grandkids were able to come together, do a musical tribute at the funeral. So it's in the blood.
Yeah, man.
And the earliest memory I have of doing music, though, was my dad holding chords and me doing the strumming. And they sent me off to piano lessons. Maybe at about 7, 8. And then I also started playing trumpet in primary school. So I remember at the graduation playing Ode to Joy for the final song there. And then over the years, I started, as I said earlier, picking up different instruments in church. And in a parallel universe, I'd have been a sprinter. Wow. Because throughout primary school, that was my other passion. But my mom took me out of that because grades weren't keeping up in joystics. So she was like, you have to fix that or else. And that just, you know that. Yeah, that just kind of pushed me in a different direction. And then also, when Ivan hit, I didn't have nothing to do, so the piano was there in the house. And I think maybe that was a turning point for me, because there's no school. I'm at home pretty much 24/7 because there's nothing else to do.
Not under lockdown, okay?
And that's what I spent a lot of my time doing, playing music. And then after that, whether it was morning, during school, after school, all I was doing was practicing, and that was what was happening.
How many instruments now do you play?
Not sure.
Yeah. No, I was trying to count what I've seen you play. Right? I mean, I picked up a number of instruments too, but I was just to move on from point A to point B. That's about it. Right? Can you help me move this one? But that, is it easy? I mean, I don't want to say it this way, to give parents the wrong thing, because I think both of you have demonstrated you have to be consistent, you have to be disciplined, you have to be not just determined, but you have to make the sacrifice. You know, some of us have pianos in the house, but they're just there for centerpiece.
Right.
We're not encouraged to use it. You know, it's just there. And I don't mean that to disrespect anyone. Others can go there and pound on those keys, and the only thing is, okay, now not too hard. You know, try this way so that you don't take it out of tune, and this is what you do, which is great. You've had that at home. You had that nurturing. But picking up the instruments and becoming so proficient with them, easier for you think?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's easy, but if you're looking at it as one goal instead of like separate goals, it makes it easier, because it still falls under the umbrella of music.
Okay.
So, and when you really think about it, there's 12 notes, so each instrument is really doing the same things, just in different ways. It might be a lower instrument, or it might have a higher pitch, but ultimately it's heading towards the same goal, and each of them have a different sound and they fit in different ways. So once you figure out what you're trying to do, you can get it done. So if you really, like in my case, is most instruments I ended up playing was just out of necessity. I didn't have anyone else that could do what I wanted to do. So I just went for it.
All right, give me, if it's okay, Glenn, and
yes, please.
This.
Want to hear from them?
Yeah, thank you. This is why I keep saying to us as adults, whether we're parents, whether we're educators or otherwise, and I don't mean this in a way to offend the sensibilities, but we've all said it, extracurricular as parents, or get my children into extracurricular activities, whatever that thing is, and that creates a connotation, I think, of it being some expense, money or time or otherwise, or is this thing that it'll come if we have extra, as it being part and parcel. So to you, Benil, the notion that we go through the day, and unlike Miss Hannah, where she did every sport exceptionally well, she performed and excelled in the classroom as well. Maybe because we were boys, our parents say, well, listen, that sport thing that you're doing is good fun, but if your grades don't come in, one gotta go and not gonna be this other thing, right? How do we get to a point where we can balance that? And if it's that we willingly reduce the sprinting or the football or whichever, and focus on the arts, the creative side, so that we don't lose the health and the socialization of the sport, but then we also hone the music, the instrument, the performing, that creative side.
Right. I mean, on a greater level, like I watched this documentary that really intrigued me about Japanese culture, And they were talking about this sushi chef that, like, for his entire life, all he was doing was trying to create the perfect one.
Chef Hashimoto. Aha. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. And to get a reservation at his restaurant, it's over a year waiting time. Yeah. And it's because these people pursued this one thing, the thing they were passionate about their whole life. And if everyone just focused on whatever their passion was for their entire lifespan, the world would be a totally different place. Because if you're happy doing what you're doing, you come in and do it with a joy every day.
Yes.
And you actually want to improve on this thing. But if you come and you're thinking about kicking a football while you're at work all day, you're not really you're not really helping. And you'd honestly be better somewhere else. But a lot of people cave because just to make ends meet, and you understand it, but it's kind of a sad reality. So if everyone could see that, if someone goes after what they're passionate about, whether it's sports or playing an instrument, accounting, whatever it is.
Passionate about accounting?
No, there's some people that are passionate about numbers.
I just teasing you.
Not me.
Selling or buying. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, but you're right. That passion is there.
Right. If it's there, it would be really good if we could encourage our young people to go after them. Because my parents never hindered me. They encouraged me and said, maybe you should try to also do this. Because I think if it was fully up to them, maybe I would have went fully into education. But for me now, it's a balance between a little bit of everything. Because I personally can't see myself like sitting in a classroom every day. But one-on-one, like seeing one child grow that's actually passionate about the instrument too, is really good for me.
Is there one instrument, or even two, but if you have a top instrument that either you prefer to play or to teach? Is there one that you prefer to play or teach?
The two favorite instruments are bass and drums.
Bass and drums?
No, sorry. Bass and piano. What am I thinking? And the last time I chose bass over piano, my car broke down, so I'm careful about what I say.
Well, you can carry a bass, but but there's a thing about the piano. I mean, I look at whoever we see as greats, but Billy Joel.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to any of the things that we may have seen and heard about the people from Austria and the likes in the last centuries, but the great storyteller of Billy Joel. Something about the way, even better than Elton John, even better. May not be as objective. When we come back from our news break, you guys got a couple of more minutes. We talk about the event coming up.
Yes.
And I'm hoping as parents in particular that we not only encourage the children in their pursuit, we provide that safe, nurturing environment, but somehow as policymakers, parliamentarians, the principals in the partnerships or in the schools, that we start to look at the importance of what the performing arts, what music and drama and being able to sing and dance and what it does for society, but what it does for that individual, the joy it brings, the satisfaction and fulfillment, but also the way it brings and unifies the society. Maybe we can talk about some other things I may ask you, but let's see. We're going to pause and take a break. A couple more minutes when we come back, or as much time as Mr. Miller together with Miss Hannah and of course Glenn has to share. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Community radio with a different appeal. The voice of the people. Security through adversity. Stuck on you. Radio for all time.
You're listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only two species that we have on the island.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. Government reported the results of 293 COVID-19 tests on Wednesday. One came back positive, a traveler in isolation. Cayman has had 236 confirmed cases of COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic. 215 have recovered. In international news, U.S. sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell said she never witnessed inappropriate underage activities by him, according to transcripts of a 2016 deposition. Ms. Maxwell had long fought to keep the testimony secret. She will go on trial in a criminal case next year and has pleaded not guilty. At least 12 civilians have been killed in an airstrike on a religious school in the northern Afghan province of Takhar, local officials say. They said the strike on the madrasa in the village killed 11 children and their prayer leader. An Italian farmer, Christian Malocci's dog, has given birth to a puppy with green fur. The tiny dog was immediately named Pistachio. The puppy was part of a 5-dog litter born at the farm on the Mediterranean island of Sardinia. A dog born with green fur is very rare. It is believed to be a result of the puppy making contact with a green pigment called biliverdin while in the womb. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you for joining us. And as we go around the table and sort of welcome all of our guests, with great deference to Ms. Jade and Hannah, I want to say thanks for encouraging us, for being the angel amongst these thorns in the room. That's good. But thank you for sharing. Perhaps as you pursue and as you continue to succeed, maybe we get a chance to have you in the studio to encourage all of us. But like others, you got a lot of work to do. As you make your graceful exit, any sort of closing thoughts you might want to leave with our listeners, please?
Yes. I want to shout out to my mom because I know she's listening.
Oh.
Wow. That's love.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
Support the young people.
Good.
That's it.
All right. Well, listen, good luck to you, and thank you for joining us. And honestly, hopefully, as we talk about the event, Glenn will help us to showcase that people would see what we're saying, that it's not exaggeration. It's all about experiencing something that is real. So good luck in your continued studies, and may the good Lord guide you, keep you safe, and keep you grounded. Blessings to you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to continue the discussion. You got Benita Miller, Glenn Ananga, and as Duncan Anderson, makes his way into the studio, you notice how some musicians, some talented, professionals, they always come in, with their swag. You know what I mean? I tell you, man, this is one of the few times I'm glad that we had the cameras on him. Glenn, I'm inclined to say, do a brief intro of Mr. Anderson, but should we just throw him into the fire and make him do it himself?
I think we should throw him into the fire.
Yeah.
He's a natural. He's a he's a phenomenally gifted musician, brass player. I know he plays bass as well, but he is a phenomenal musician, and all his teachers have always said this, and he's just got better and better and better. And I was excited when he accepted the invitation, not just to come in today, but to perform this evening at the library concert, because I don't think people have heard him for a while, and I don't think people really appreciate the quality of the local talent that we have here that's being recognized internationally through places like Berklee College of Music, where Benil and Jaden, Benil was there, Jaden's just started in now in the 4th semester, and Duncan's about to finish, so I'm going to let him talk about what his experience has been like. So tonight, come and hear Duncan at 6 p.m. at the library, Georgetown Public Library.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson. Good afternoon, man. And as we, invite you, for those who may either be familiar with you individually or through your family, with you, share with us, not just who you are, what you're doing, but welcome to the discussion.
All right, so as you know, I've been at Berklee for the past 4 years, and I'm there as a euphonium player, and I'm like maybe one of 3 or 4 euphonium players. Not many euphonium players are there, and everyone else is either on like trombone or trumpet or something. And I also play the tuba, but I didn't do too much of that there. And even though I wasn't like registered as a bass player, but I still like accompany myself with a lot of the bass players and learned a lot from them, as well as going to like other like open classes that are like open to like all the musicians at Berkeley, such as like Victor Wooten workshops, a lot of professional players that go there and teach classes that are open to all students. And yeah, I learned a lot playing bass there as well.
I'm going to ask you two things, because you're finishing up now online, like many, right? So what that is like, and hopefully it doesn't, in your mind, sort of devalue what you've done and not being in person because of where we are with this thing that we're all experiencing, right? But if I recall correctly, trying to find your instrument way back when we were having one discussion on air and just even try to source Euphonium. I remember somebody going, what is that? It's not a guitar or a piano. It's not, the sax. Not something that everybody, even probably some people going, well, what are they saying? So is that what, am I remembering correctly that you've been trying to source it at one point? Here, Glenn, was that a challenge?
Well, that's been a challenge to like anyone I've introduced that to, even some of my teachers at Berkeley. Yeah. Most classes when you start, they ask everyone like their name and what instrument they play and stuff. And every time I mention euphonium, the teachers are like, "What is that?"
Yeah. I remember, your older brother sitting. They were just chatting about it all fair, thinking it's amazing. So even an instrument like that, even the opportunity for people. When you were talking about playing the violin, the first thing I heard was fiddle, right? And seeing how, for me it was Mr. Duxie, the instruments of yesteryear and how our people gravitate towards certain things. For you, how did you come about that?
Actually, I think coming across euphonium was kind of a mistake. Because when I first started playing instruments in high school, I was in primary school and they were asking us to choose the instruments we want to play. And we didn't really get an image of what instruments were. It was just a list of instruments. And I actually wanted to play the baritone sax.
Yeah.
And
not a tenor sax, but a baritone.
Yeah, okay. And euphonium was listed as a baritone horn. Or just baritone, so I thought that was a baritone sax, so I chose that, and I was actually disappointed when I opened the case for the first time.
Okay, what were you expecting? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just stuck with it and started to learn to enjoy it more.
I can see people jumping in their search engines going, how do you spell that? What am I finding? But okay, so what did you expect to find, and describe to us, what is it, the euphon? What is a euphonium?
Euphonium, or like a bari sax, it's a saxophone, a really big one, a low sounding bass instrument.
Yeah.
A lot of people really enjoy the sound of it, and euphonium is a completely different family of instruments. It's a brass instrument, and it's a tenor horn, and it's shaped like it's kind of like a smaller tuba, and it sounds like a cross between a French horn and a trombone.
So it's kind of like, I gotta say. That's an amazing thing. Now, Benil, I know I think trumpet is one of yours as well. All right, you played the trumpet
a long time ago.
No, yeah, not long ago, bro. If Glenn said that, I could understand it. Looking at instruments, being a gifted musician, you are knowing all the instruments. Like I like the tenor sax. Not that I can play, but I think probably any instrument is great. For me, the cello, just watching someone strum it. I still recall the ancestors and watching it. The piano is phenomenal because it actually talks. I can hear the words. But brass instruments bring something. Whether you see the trumpet and you think of a military parade of some sort, or you think of call to arms. But the euphonium, you see a French horn. Is it, to you, somber? Is it, I wouldn't say seductive, but if you had to put it in words, what is that? What's the connotation of the instrument? The sax is the piano, definitely, but euphonium?
Euphonium, to me is more of like a solo instrument,
Mhm.
and it has a really like mellow sound. It's not too aggressive like other instruments like saxophone or even trumpet, and it's not as aggressive as trombone either, but it's in the lower register, and it has a really like smooth sound.
Yeah. Sort of like you easygoing, smooth, just chill. All right. When you're performing, or even when you're rehearsing, perhaps if it's okay, so you're in your space, whoever's there is there, whether it's you by yourself or you trusted, loyal few that you've assembled. What does that playing that instrument do for you? What space does that take you, and what does it bring out of you?
Well, with Euphonium, it's relaxing in a way, but also being a brass instrument, it's a lot of effort to play.
Yeah.
And like I've always noticed with brass instruments, they're like the most physically engaged instruments.
Yeah. And thanks to Sam, because what I was trying to get at is that sometimes I'm not a musician, but I love music. Probably the only thing I don't care for is heavy metal. I don't quite get that, right? But it doesn't mean that it isn't good and people don't enjoy it, right? The softer lyrics of, say, a White Snake talking about, something that is transpiring historically, right? But to see the sax and the effort that goes into that, even Bill Clinton trying to win a campaign, or Dizzy Gillespie or others playing the piano, you can sit there and you can just watch the movement, or the drummer really getting heated and exercising, and the almost sometimes acrobatic, but certainly the aerobic exercise, right? And then on top of that, the guitarist, whether it's the lead guitar or whether it's the bass player, just jamming so. But for having an opportunity to revisit what a euphonium is and watching it play, there's this effort, but then there's also graceful. There is this, my view, attempt to make sure that the effort to produce the sounds, but then you can't be jumping up and down like you would be with a guitar or a drum. You got to kind of be focused.
Yeah.
So almost a juxtaposition between being aggressive and being stilled. How do I achieve? I don't know. Is that how you find it? Because internally you have to be exerting a lot of energy and effort.
Yeah, it's mostly to do with like the lungs and stuff. It's like when you're exercising and you start panting, it's almost the same way, except you're panting through the instrument to produce the sound. And yeah, that's
We're going to talk about tonight's event. I think the library is probably the place that instills and invigorates as it calms and nurtures. But before we do, we have a guest calling us in, and I'm looking around the studio and realize that we're going to have to share headsets the best as we can hear. I apologize for that. I was too excited. So in the studio, Benil Miller. We're now joined by Duncan Anderson. We have the excellent company of Glenn and Anga. And just prior, as Jade and Hannah was in the studio, but she's continuing her studies, so she'll return to her class. Thanks for her time. Let's go to our phones. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon. I wonder if any of these guys in there, or girls in there, can they play between the highs and lows?
So I'll repeat it for Glenn's sake. Glenn, maybe can they play between the highs and lows? Yeah, but I understand and recognize what you're saying. If not, would you be so kind to explain? Because remember, other than me, the rest of these guys are young.
I think Jens would be able to answer that. But anyway, you're talking about instruments. Has anybody had any experience with a dulcimer?
The dulcimer? Okay, so anybody know? Glenn? Do we know?
Does anybody play the dulcimer?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know who does here in Cayman, but it's a beautiful instrument. Why do you ask?
Well, I was just curious, because we're talking about music, and how about the dobra?
What?
Dobra?
Dobra.
Yeah, you're drawing a blank, man.
Okay. I don't know exactly what the dobra is. Which country is it from?
From Cayman.
Okay.
Well, the dobra is a version of the guitar.
Okay.
You know, you've probably seen pictures of it. It has a more or less a steel, want to call belly, you know, and it's played similar to a steel guitar, but the dobra has this steel dome more or less under the strings that gives it.
Got it.
Altogether different sound. What about the fugal? I think that's correct. The fugal horn.
Yeah, flugelhorn. That we all know that one.
Yeah, I've played that.
Yeah.
But I guess there's not a lot of flugelhorn players around.
I know a few.
Okay, yeah. So, but with that though, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I think increasingly we're seeing in the Cayman context an attempt to remind ourselves of not just the music that was played. We talk about the kitchen band, but even the passing from our memories of some of the instruments, or even as I probably incorrectly recall, what we term some instruments that may be known by something else in other places. But one, the decreasing practice to play those instruments and the utilization of those instruments generally, and two, the seemingly almost reluctance to embrace the traditional approach to our musical gifting. How do we address that? I mean, what do we do, not only because it's important for the promotion and preservation, but it's important to musical history that we have, you know, this thing preserved but also celebrated?
I think it's important that especially young folks are exposed to all of the you want to call it genres of music, you know, right across the board, because like I was listening a little earlier and I heard one of your guests say, well, you know, there's only 7 notes to the musical scale.
12 was
12.
Yeah. Yeah, I took the other 2. Sorry.
and 1,000 in between each one of those. So, you know, but you're all kind of going after the same the same capacity that's within the musical scale. Only you do it in different ways. But it's very interesting conversation, and it would be that you know, more Caymanians are exposed to the whole genre of music, from the bass pan, from the bass pan bass up to whatever they're. I'm not sure what they're creating today. I'm not sure that they're creating anything new. They're just real versions of what existed what's been existing for a long time. But you know, music is an international language, and I think if you can hum a tune or sing a song or whatever, write a note, you know, you're in good shape.
I fully believe that, man. Hey, thank you for encouraging, for reminding us and sharing. Anything else, sir, that you want to leave with our listeners or with our guests?
No, I think there's a lot of Cayman indigenous music that or let's say melodies, more or less, that needs to get more exposure. And if they're not exposed more, they will probably just die. They'll probably get lost in the grass hole.
Yeah, some of the grass piece is being cleared to make way for some high rise. Huh?
I'm glad you said that, because I know in February we're planning in the Cayman Arts Festival to have a very locally focused, in terms of content, melodic content event, where we're really exploring more Caymanian melodies, basically. So watch this space in February. So.
Come on. Thank you, sir. Thanks very much. Huh?
Good. Thank
you. All right. Enjoy your afternoon. You know, I do appreciate that, you know, as much as I enjoy this conversation, as much as it's music to my soul. I mean, what is it we were told? If music be the fruit of love, play on. And there's nothing like music, other than props, sports and food, to bring people together. You know, it doesn't matter what language you speak as your mother tongue. The fact that, you know, if you all play an instrument, with a little bit of communication, you can have a jam session. You know, for that one time, right then came on. You know, 4 individuals who each struggled with English. Was a West Bay, a Canberra, but they all played different instruments, and you know, despite the inability to speak the other's native tongue, they were able to have a little jam session. Now, in a few sessions, they got better. So with that in mind, Glenn, tonight, you know, the library in and of itself, just a space to go into. The old library in the town, I think, is just a magnificent building. What is it? What are you presenting tonight?
Well, we're presenting a wonderful program, one involving a singer, who, again, all local. And I don't know what his program is going to be because I'm going to hear it for the first time because he's been accompanied by somebody else. And as typical of our events in the library, we showcase a lot of young, international fantastic talent, one of which is Duncan Anderson here today, and he's going to be playing on the euphonium. So those people who haven't seen a euphonium, who haven't heard a euphonium, I could tell you haven't heard it played like this before. His program is just insane, highly virtuosic, and I think it does justice to the capabilities of this young gentleman here. So that's the night between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. You can just come, walk in and get tickets at the door. But by you attending, you are supporting a lot of the initiatives that the Cayman Arts Festival has for a lot of the young people that we have in our after-school programs. And, you know, Benil, who's also here, he's doing some phenomenal stuff that I keep seeing online. He's also involved in education. He teaches a lot of our students as well in our programs, and just seeing how he's able to inspire these students is wonderful. Some of these students have performed in our series in the library as well. But yeah, many people are always looking for things to go out and attend. It's strictly starts at 6, promptly ends by 7. It's a nice little sweet spot before after work, before on your way home. And if my little daughter, her 3-year-old daughter, comes to it, and you know, it's just before her bedtime, so it works quite nicely for children to come. So we strongly encourage. And I kept saying to her, "Hey, you're going to hear a brass instrument this time." And she says, "Yes, it's not a trumpet. It's not a trumpet. It's a." I said, "It's a euphonium. And you get to hear what it sounds like, and get to see what it looks like as well." So she's very excited as well about that. So yeah, we would like to encourage people to come out. You know, come and support our local talent, come and support our young people, and we'll also have another event next week, Thursday as well, and you know, you've got tickets for that here to give away further down the line. But that's at St. George's Anglican Church. But again, I get very excited whenever we have an event like this at such a historic venue here in Cayman, and I get excited when, you know, the talent comes back from overseas and, you know, shares with the community what they've been up to. So that's tonight.
Well, I'm hoping that, you know, with this discussion, that we are, as a community, A, we're not dismissive, and B, as we listen, you know, we don't listen attentively only. We embrace and we try to figure out how to encourage. Not that writing checks and giving money isn't important. That's crucial. You know, money, unfortunately, you know, dictate whether lights stay on, whether people are able to have a clean venue to perform, or even there's a venue. But the sheer presence and participation, the kind word. I mean, Benil, if I were to say, if it weren't for the initial days of the support that whether Jane, whether Anderson received from the immediate environs, you probably wouldn't pursue what you have today. Is that a fair sort of assessment?
Yeah, I would, because I have to give credit where credit is
well, thank you very much, man.
Yeah, you of course showed me all the ropes. But Junior Jennings was the most influential.
Was that where you were?
No.
See, I was way back.
I don't know what that was.
Yeah, I know.
But he well, most people won't understand what we're talking about, but he showed me the diminished chord.
Yeah, man.
And for years I'd hear this chord, and I wouldn't know how to get it done on the piano. And when he showed me that, it's like my world, like,
wow.
Like my brain exploded. I was like, that's how you do that? And he was instrumental in encouraging me and showing me a lot of the things. And he said, like, I had many teachers before that, but he was the first one who was able to push me beyond, or push me into, like, the direction, or steer me into the correct direction. And another person who was instrumental in my trajectory was Charles Gregory.
Gee.
And
yes,
he was actually the person who convinced me to record an album. Before that, I'd never considered singing, anything like that. I just did singing as like
it's a great album, by the way.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for him, he showed me a lot of things with production, just life. And I remember the first time I went to the studio was we were trying to record our graduation song in 2009, and I never knew anything like that existed. And I would literally, every chance I get, walk to the studio.
Yeah, man. You see, that's the thing, we live in a small space, and sadly, even your neighbor, who is your family, or your friend, the person you want to see, even though they're literally next door, sometimes they're maybe a co-worker that you send an email to every day, or you pick up the phone and call, and they're on the floor over, or they're across the hall. We can live in this space and never see or engage or interact, right? And from what you shared, that teacher, the musical teacher, for instance, for one student could be so inspiring and nurturing by his or her approach, but to another student, they don't take to it as easily, just like with the coach. And that prompts me to share that we need to keep encouraging and ensuring that there are as many coaches and teachers and musical sort of opportunities as there are candies in their jar. And how do we get there? These programs help us to support it.
Definitely. And again, I keep saying to people in the community, it doesn't take much to support these people. Just come to a concert, come and hear what they're doing. If you checking online, check out some of the stuff Benil's done. Check out his album, all original music. It's really fantastic. I have it playing on my stuff when I go running. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, man.
So go support local.
So 6 o'clock tonight at the library. Now, as we wrap up our discussion, I want to seriously thank you all for taking such an extended period. I've enjoyed it. I've come away realizing that had I listened to my parents, and perhaps I would today not only appreciate listening and watching and observing and being a part of it, but maybe I could halfway sound decent in the shower. Apparently there's a lot I'm not allowed to even sing in the shower, but that's a different story. Mr. Anderson, since you just join us, maybe as we close our discussion, could we close out with you first? Any thoughts you may want to leave with either your peers or with parents or aspiring students, the wider community? Anything, sir, that you wish to share? Yeah, I appreciate it. Let your music be your voice, right?
Yeah, well...
Now, tonight, is there a well, as you close out and you do the program tonight, it's all instrumental?
Yeah, it's all instrumental.
Right. Would you, I guess they want to know what you're going to play in the pieces. The familiar tunes or any original pieces that you're going to perform?
Well, I'm playing 3 pieces, and one of them is, it's called Party Piece by Philip Spark, and that's something specifically written for euphonium. Most pieces are written for like trumpet, or it's transposed from like a woodwind instrument, which makes it kind of difficult to play. But this one's written specifically for euphonium, so a lot of it's like kind of more like easier to understand to play. And another one I'm playing is a Elgar, and I think that was originally written for a piano, or
I think bassoon.
Bassoon, yeah, that's right. And this was transposed for euphonium. And the last one I'm playing is it's written by this guy called Jean-Baptiste Arbin, who wrote an entire book full of exercises for brass players. And at the back, he made a theme and variations fantasy piece, which it's really interesting.
Worth hearing.
Yeah, see, that invitation alone is worth it. Mr. Miller, what about you? Closing thoughts, what are you performing this evening? Share with the listeners as you choose.
I'm on a break.
Well-deserved break.
I'm not performing.
I know.
Again till next year. We're working on some original stuff. So that's my little project right now. Yeah. But if people are interested in lessons, I teach at Spark School of Music, And
Yeah,
come
man.
on through.
Great.
It's Tibbetts in there, man. Yeah, man. There we go.
Yes.
I have to say big up to Jared Tibbetts. That's the Berkeley OG. He was there before me, and went there and saw him. Always good to see a familiar face.
When I heard about OG, I'm thinking. So it makes me realize I might be the OG. All right, Mr. Glenn, your parting words for our listeners today.
Well, my parting words again, I want to thank Radio Cayman for giving us the opportunity to showcase this amazing young talent that again is recognized by Berkeley. And it was a nice Berkeley session, I would say. A shame I wasn't able to get to Jared in time. It would be nice to have him as well. So I do apologize publicly to Jared for not reaching out to him in time. But I think it's just a wonderful thing to have had Jaden, Benil, and Duncan in here. And I really think more people need to pay attention to what these young people are doing. They're doing phenomenal things. I'm very privileged to be in a position where I get to see so much of this amazing talent as it emerges. I got to see Duncan and Benil from the time they were teenagers, and even before, and just seeing how they've just really just done so well with their development, and they really work very hard. Very humble. They really push themselves as far as they can, and this is world class talent that we have here in the Cayman Islands, and we really have to support it and big it up, as we say. So again, I just want to thank our listeners for spending time with us today as well, and again, I'm very thankful at UCCI that these kids came through as well. Even Benil was just there for one semester, but it was really nice. It was a nice launch pad for some of them to, for us to cross paths and for me to work with them. So again, I thank them for giving me the opportunity to be that part in their lives.
Well, thank you for facilitating and bringing along this excellent example of what exists in our society. And I think this is one of the many reasons why, as an individual, I don't have to work hard at being positive and encouraging. I don't have to look, too far to see great examples of what we have in our society that is so wonderful. And I think, more of us that see that. If you surround yourself with positive things, if you look for the good in almost everything, you can be not only productive in your endeavors, but you can have a sense of fulfillment. And I'm not living vicariously through you, but I look into the future with a hope and expectation, because I don't need to travel anywhere else to see greatness. I can just call up a classmate whose son or daughter is doing something excellent, or has a co-worker or a former co-worker. And these are people that, other than being more handsome than me, they look like me, being taller than me, they look like me. These are people we can relate to, whether it's a fried fish and a little bit of breadfruit that we enjoy, for breakfast, or whether it's a little bit of fritters and some, something else, a little cassava cake. Things that we know, all important as we embrace the wider world. We can still showcase and celebrate what Mr. Loxler Banks talk about, sensitivity. So,
thankful.
Yeah, man.
What they call in.
Enjoy it. If we can be a part of it, don't even need knocks twice. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
All right.
Certainly.
As Mr. Nangle said, we've got something just to say thanks to our listeners. If you want to know what it is, well, after the break, we'll talk about that. We'll even tell you who's going to win the next election. We didn't tell you which country and which year, but we'll tell you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
CUC is going virtual. We have the same awesome team ready to provide you with excellent service.
We managed to implement technology right before the lockdown that allowed our reps to work from home and still deliver that exact same level of service.
Our priority will always be to provide our customers with the high quality of service to which you've grown accustomed. Visit our website at www.cuc-cayman.com or reach out to us at service@cuc.ky. We are here to serve you.
Are you constantly cleaning your home or office and spending less time on business or with family?
H&A Janitorial Services is offering residential and commercial cleaning starting at just $11 per hour per cleaner for a limited time only. Buy 2 cleaning, get the third free. That's buy 2 cleanings and get the third free. From deep cleaning services to upholstery, carpets, windows, tiles, and grout, H&A uses antibacterial cleaning products to ensure a spotless, sanitized environment. Call H&A Janitorial 743-2875 or 324-0879 and ask how you can get your third cleaning absolutely free. Terms and conditions apply.
Come and enjoy spooktacular fun for the whole family at Cayman Turtle Center's Halloween Family Fun Fest.
Saturday the 31st of October. Explore the wildlife, ride the water slide, splash in the lagoon, and enjoy fun games and activities for the kids.
The Halloween fun will take place from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. with carnival-style food and drink specials for the whole family.
Costumes are encouraged, and kids 12 and under in costume will get free admission.
It's Cayman Turtle Center's Halloween Family Fun Fest.
Saturday, October 31st. Don't miss it.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
The Customs and Border Control Overstay Amnesty will end on October 31st. Persons who are already scheduled to depart the island may do so without seeking an extension. Persons wanting to apply for an extension can do so online by visiting www.cbc.gov.ky or by presenting themselves in person to the counter, or appointments can be made by contacting 244-3318 or emailing caymanvisa@gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome back, and thank you for joining us. And thanks too for everything that you're doing to help, to support, to encourage, to nurture, to ensure that the opportunities that our young people, but members of our society in particular, get to embrace, to get to help, showcase who they are, what they are. It's important, whether they're have the strong passion for some sport. It could be football, but it could be badminton, it could be tennis, it could be anything. It could be that they're excellent in the classroom at all the subjects, or only a handful, or maybe only one. But let's make sure that they understand the importance of being disciplined, of providing for them that environment that is safe and nurturing so they can excel and be fulfilled. Now, I know many people will look at it and say, oh boy, you're always positive and optimistic, almost idealistic. Well, if you don't raise the bar and expect excellence, then I know what the thing will do. Maybe we need to move from so willingly accepting mediocrity for so, accepting and almost expecting others to assemble and pat themselves on the back, as opposed to rolling up their sleeves and digging in to ensure that the benefits accrue to more than just a few. Well, if that makes a few of us, be pricked, well, hey, if it's going to push us to excellence, then so much the better. Life is too short, my friends. No man is promised tomorrow. Pray that I'm a part of it, and so will you. But at the end of the day, what are we making of this hour and this time? There are some of us, sadly, that have been able to act with impunity, and nobody chastises them, nobody holds them to account. They believe that they're lords unto their own fiefdoms, but it's not about self-promotion and aggrandizement. It's about being of service, to the spouse as well as to the children. As we serve a society, it's about uplifting all and sundry. There's nothing wrong with making an extra buck or an extra billion, but it's about making an invaluable contribution equally for others. Think of it. What is more beneficial, erecting a statue or planting a nice mango tree? Which would bear more fruit, or which would give more shade, and which would provide, at the end of the day, maybe the shelter in the storm? You may say otherwise. We may get to a time where the statues are pulled down. The tree may even be blown over, but it can be replanted, and it can, even as it fails and falls, it can provide something. When, it's no longer there, well, what it was can become, a sense of nutrient for what it will become thereafter. The statue, whether it rusts or whether it falls, it's going to require a level of maintenance and, for some, a sense of expense to securing it, whether in storage or fence so that others don't, deface it. But the tree, it can always stand tall. So, what is it that we're looking about after all? Share your thoughts with us, my friends. 949-8037, 949-8037. Or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. And as we walk the face of this earth, let it be that we are doing something of value. Well, can we say thanks to you again, like we tried to yesterday as well? Can we say how grateful we are that you take time out to listen? And if you need to challenge, what is said or shared here, even if you want to take on the host, and today is my turn, go right ahead. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. As you put your thoughts together, as you decide that you may want to talk about politics, I know many of us, well, at least been in my circle, they enjoy it, and they are almost glued to the media, watching every single minute of every single day what is unfolding within the U.S., in particular as they get ready to go to their national elections and select their next, political leader in their high office. There are others who do likewise in other jurisdictions. There's some of us that say, well, what will be, will be. If you want to talk about that, that's fine. You may want to fast forward and say, hey, what about our own elections coming up, in not too long from now? You may have a particular view about what has been transpiring thus far and what you foresee or perhaps hope might going forward down the road. Or you might say, enough of that. Let's talk about something else. Well, we're going to give you a chance to weigh in. And could we do it this way? We got a couple of tickets that we want to give away for an event coming up next Thursday evening, as the Cayman Arts Festival has billed it, an organ and violin, or if you're from West Bay, you say a violin, musical soiree. It's next Thursday evening. There's an event this evening over at the library at 6 p.m. We don't want you to confuse that, but we're going to give you tickets for next Thursday's evening. And so what we're going to do, we're going to give it a couple of tickets between now and the program closes out. So the first caller after the break that I talk to on air will give you a ticket if you so choose. If you're going to buy them normally, they're $25. But we'll happily, on a partnership sort of with our sales team and the Cayman Arts Festival, offer up you a ticket. So the first call after the break, the ticket is yours if you want. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Digital is not a buzzword, it is a culture. At Digicel, we've made it our mission to enrich your digital lives. That's why we're bringing together more of all the experiences you love. The latest shows, the best of local and international music and radio, live sports, cloud storage, breaking news, HD video chats, and more. Welcome to Digital at Digicel, the Caribbean's fastest mobile network. Digicel, better together.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
For the record.
for information that matter to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM from 7:30 to 9 a.m. for Cayman's new Straight Talk morning show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record. Brought to you by
Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
As an adult, kids want to know that you're listening to them, but they also want to listen to you. When it comes to alcohol and other drugs, they want to know your expectations and how and why to avoid underage drinking. Talking often and early in everyday conversation reinforces your message and keeps lines of communication open. For more information, visit us at ndc.ky. This is a public service message from the National Drug Council and Radio Cayman.
Friday's CI Retro Talk Today presentation will tell you about some of our unsung heroes. So be listening. Here's just a little teaser.
On the northeast triangle key, said that's where I leave them this morning as the sun was rising. He said, well, how you come to be down here? I said, well, I swam across the triangle key channel and I walked the reef down. Tide took me off, I said, down about halfway down, I call it. But I said, out for a long time, but the Lord helped me that I got back in. He said, you swam across northeast channel, the triangle key channel? I said, yes, sir. And he said, you didn't know what you were doing. So I'm sorry to tell you, but you didn't know.
CI Retro's Talk Today special presentation Friday at 12:15 p.m. on Radio Cayman, brought to you by the Ministry of Culture. Cayman Islands culture. Love it, wear it, be proud of it.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Very, very grateful to those who listen, for those who take time to share a comment, whether it's in written form, or whether they call and record a voice note, whether they share and engage with us directly. Here's one of what I think a very, very profound comment by one of our listeners. Let me read it, and I will endeavor to read it as best as I can. Hopefully you can follow along. And this listener writes, says, after spending much energy trying to digest the so-called passing of the torch from the now Minister to a Minister of Finance, Honorable Roy McTaggart, it was proven to be a great waste of my time and energy, simply because, as I was reading the article written by CNS, which has certainly confirmed any doubts I might have had that this person, the Premier, could show any level of respect or consideration for his fellow citizens. Reading the selfish utterances by the Premier in regards to the self-proclaimed accomplishments of his quote-unquote government over this last 2 terms was quite amusing, yet concerning for me, especially regarding some of the language used in his address to the Legislative Assembly to characterize citizens for publicly expressing their concerns with his leadership. He criticized those unidentified opponents planning to run for office of wanting to wind back the clock to a mythical golden age that exists only in their rose-tinted remembrances. Unquote. The fact he could have any issue with anyone that would like to see the inclusiveness of the Caymanian people in whatever growth be resemblance of the Cayman Islands historically. Is it that hard to imagine the sustainable growth and economic development with Caymanian people integrated in its fabric is a better way forward and not winding back the hands of time? But it seems by his own admission that the continuity of Caymanians within the process he defines as progress is in fact mythical. The only rose-tinted lens I believe the Premier is referring to are those of his own, with this vision of a future Cayman without Caymanians benefiting or being a part of the development on every level. I've talked about the handicap mentally that 200 years of colonialism has inflicted on our ability to have confidence in each other, and more importantly, paying for our own oppression with educational deprivation. We are non-existent within the overall economic climate that has seen the highest level of success for a small few. We are left behind to plow the grounds for table scraps, forgotten or overseen by those guarding the gates. How long can this hold, and what will happen when it breaks? Who will pay the price? These are all very real scenarios if people aren't treated equally and fairly in their own country. The success of any country can't be measured by politicians because they only look out for those that get them elected and not those that elect them. Understand the fundamental principles and differences between the two. One pays for the campaign, the other is the campaign, and when the campaign is over, so are the efforts. Now that those that sponsor the campaign are who are in control. So it doesn't matter how many meetings you attended or how many flags or signs you had up. If you didn't finance it, you won't benefit from it. The only title you will be able to boast is that your party won. Oh yeah, and maybe, just maybe, depending on how long you've been a loyal supporter, you might end up on a board or two. The party favors at the end. It's time we create industries and infrastructure plus opportunities which will facilitate growth and local wealth amongst those who are normally overwhelmingly marginalized because of their personal views or political sides, victims at the hands of their own. To now ensure that all success is locally geared and sustainable for all our people, no matter what the task is. Well, thanks for taking time to send that through, and thank you for listening and sharing. Now, what is, perhaps your most pressing thought relative to what is now transpiring before us? Is it that we are progressing down a path aimlessly, or do you see a great vision ahead for our country and its people? Are you, like some, concerned that we are at a precipice, and if we're not careful, we're going to jump into the abyss and all to be forgotten? Or are we at a crossroads, and which turn do we make? And is the road ahead one that is rocky but can be navigated? Or is it one that seemingly is smooth and well paved, but we don't know that it's over, some just buried and hidden in deep crevice that isn't structurally sound? So as nice and glittering as it may seem, it won't hold any weight, it's not sustainable, and the slightest, amount of pressure, it's going to cave in. Now, are you like others, recognizing that the sacrifice comes from the service, and through that is the success for future generations? We move forward not for our own benefit and selfish sort of accomplishments, but to continue to pave the way, to be the cathedral builders for successive generations. Are we, as a people, prepared to work hand in hand, to embrace all who come, to ensure that there's a sense of inclusion, to recognize the importance of respecting who we are and what we have, and to appreciate that we are clearly and convincingly communicating to all as we grow our population, as we develop our lands, that is about building a healthy, stable, sustainable society, not measured only by its economic success, but also the social stability, that quality of life that we enjoy, where the beaches are not overcrowded and littered, where the seas are not polluted, and sewage everywhere, where even the grasslands are respected, where the public open spaces are preserved and enjoyed, where we who use the public facilities, whether they're restrooms or parks, whether they're trails or just, little hidden gems elsewhere, that we don't go, foolishly and just abuse and leave them to abandon. But we also appreciate that there's a time when the space not only needs our care and attention, but it needs to itself have a rest period. If we're constantly trampling the same path day in and day out, it may become well worn, but it may not have the chance to, regenerate so that successive generations can enjoy. And in those paths that should be preserved, whether they're accesses to beach, whether they're over certain places that allow people to get easy and safer from A to B, that they're not allowed to be built on and discarded. Happy balance and certainly a sense of knowing the difference. Now, where are we? And more importantly, who are we? Share with us 949-8037 or toll free with the compliments of Flo at 1-800-534-8255. It does not always have to be political, but even if it is, it certainly doesn't have to be so vitriolic and divisive that we're not able to at least respectfully listen to the dissenting voice. It doesn't mean that because it's a cry in unison by the majority that it's necessarily, right nor good. But it doesn't have to mean that because, there's this large group singing in chorus that is also, bad. Well, it may be. But do we pray and do we have the discernment to know the difference? And when something doesn't seem right, doesn't feel right, are we prepared to look constructively at it, analyze it, and comment, and then to take the appropriate corrective action? Or are we willing to say after the fact, I could have told you so? Well, maybe then it's be too late. Your friend, your spouse, and hopefully your spouse is your friend. If you're going to plant something in your garden and you're standing there realizing that through your own experience and expertise, that it would be better to plant it on a different side of the garden or on a different day because of the almanac and the like, would you not be most inclined to share so that mistake is made, just like you may have previously? Or are you waiting until all the effort is expended to say, I could have told you so? Well, depends on your perspective. All right, the news is amongst us. We'll pause and we'll take a break. When we return, it'll be some open line, and as we invite you to call and share your thoughts with us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Saturday's edition of your Yesteryear Musical on Breeze Radio at 8 p.m. will concert with the 2021 Heroes Day celebrants, or Cayman Islands Seafarers.
Now she said, whoa, sailor, be careful what you do.
But that was the experience of my life, to know that in 92 days I was able to go around the world, what I never dreamed I would ever do. I had the opportunity to go ashore and go to Cairo, and I went and I physically touched the pyramid. I rowed a boat on the River Nile, 2 o'clock one morning, myself and 2 guys from Northside.
Now she said, oh, sailor, I think you've won my heart.
That's Saturday at 8 p.m. on Breeze Radio. Your Yesteryear Musical in concert with the 2021 Heroes Day celebrants, or Cayman Islands Seafarers.
Oh, sailor, I think you've won my heart.
Now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Everywhere.
Can you hear me now? Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yes, right from your Android or iPhone. Download the Radio Cayman app now on your Android or iOS phone.
The Radio Cayman app
is where you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere you go.
Everywhere we go, we go. Everywhere we go, we go.
Find it in the Google Store, the Apple Store, or use the link at www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Yes, now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Youth Services Unit has extended the deadline of submission of nominations for Proud of Them Round 12 until Friday, October 31st, 2020. In international news, U.S. sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell said she never witnessed inappropriate underage activities by him, according to transcripts of a 2016 deposition. Ms. Maxwell had long fought to keep the testimony secret. She will go on trial in a criminal case next year and has pleaded not guilty. At least 12 civilians have been killed in an airstrike on a religious school in the northern Afghan province of Takhar, local officials say. They said the strike on the madrasa in the village killed 11 children and their prayer leader. An Italian farmer, Christian Malocci's dog, has given birth to a puppy with green fur. The tiny dog was immediately named Pistachio. The puppy was part of a 5-dog litter born at the farm on the Mediterranean island of Sardinia. A dog born with green fur is very rare. It is believed to be a result of the puppy making contact with a green pigment called biliverdin while in the womb. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks again for sharing your thoughts and sharing your lunch hour with us. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. And a quick reminder, a number of you yesterday had shared your perspective on the traffic, the speeding through our neighborhoods. Not just the speeding, but sometimes the larger vehicles, whether they're big SUVs or whether they're some of the utility vehicles that transport or aggregate, whether it's a dump truck or the larger, other sort of service vehicles. The way that we drive. For some, a skillful driver behind the wheel and understands, the machinery that he's operating. And unfortunately, for us who don't have that experience and expertise, probably don't realize the skillfulness of the driver, and that probably would instill in us a sense of trepidation, a little bit fearful. Well, that's a big dump truck, that hits my car. But that person is so skillful in navigating. But maybe then the sensitivity of the operator, that driver, say for example the dump truck, may step back and put himself or herself in the driving seat or the walking shoes of the other person. Say, well, how would I feel if this big dump truck is coming towards me, whether it's going 20 or 40, whether it's moving down a wide open road or it's a winding sort of narrow road in a highly developed residential area. A little bit of consideration, not necessarily empathy, but a little bit of consideration as to the other person's perspective can go a long way. Now, I say that to ask, we had mentioned some weeks back, what is that society that we want in the future? Many have shared, but you can't legislate for morality. You can't pass laws to, tell people that in these circumstances they can behave. But seemingly we do, and we have, and we can. But maybe it needs to go beyond laws and policing and that sort of thing. Maybe it needs to come to an ethos within a society that, like the example often given, you having a yard sale. Would you want one where you hire in security because you've put things on the lawn or in your garage or wherever it is that you're selling from to make sure nobody takes away without paying? Or is it like we've seen examples in much larger, more popularly developed areas that seemingly can do this? You have a little basket where you put your money in to pay for the item that is out for free for all to walk around and inspect, and they like it, they take it with them and they make their payment, whether it's the fruit from the garden or whether it's the grandmother's old rocking chair that is being sold as part of the estate. Now, do you think that could exist in the Cayman context today? Some of you might say, well, I don't know if it existed ever, or it did way back when. My grandmother was a little girl, but boy, not today. But why not? Now, is that being naive and idealistic? Or is that, wait a minute, why can't it be? Likewise, when we walk our streets to exercise, or just because, the neighbor is just a quarter mile down the road, I'm not taking anything heavy. It's not that hot. It's not rainy. And if I'm too tired to get back home, the neighbor can easily take me back home. But many of us will get into the car to walk instead of walking, simply because, well, we don't feel safe. That barking dog across the street, or maybe the speed with which the other neighbors or people visiting will drive, maybe for some reason we don't feel as safe. But what if it wasn't that way? The little walk would be good to sort of, warm up the appetite, or maybe after the meal, maybe good to get a little exercise to aid with the digestion. You're not exerting yourself to, creating a sort of cramps and the like, but maybe, just eating and then sleeping. But maybe you refuse to walk because you don't feel safe, not just, unsafe because of the neighbor's pets or the other menacing behaviors of some people or a pet, or the speed in the traffic. Now, we have to choose what society that we want. Now, following the conversation that we had with a few yesterday, I'll share with you what I witnessed, and I thought, was this just a testament to what it is and we're looking for it and we see it so often, or is it people who are saying, you think that was bad? Check this out. I'll tell you about it in a second, but let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, Dwayne, good afternoon.
Buenos días, buenas tardes, señor. Ay, igualmente, ¿no?
Yeah. Well, I mean that you are qualified now to go and lecture at the university.
At University of West Bay, or?
No, well, I mean that one too, because that is a very important university to lecture at.
I believe so, yeah.
But it might be a dangerous one as well.
Only because we have fertile minds that we're, nurturing. So from those minds come great action.
Because I know that you have been in training for years and years and years, and if the community could give you at least the type of encouragement and a feeling of security that you could make the kind of economic transition to risk-seeking public office, I think that you would be a magnificent social healer, and that you could do a lot to change the way in which our society is structured. Because I know that if we continue on this path, whereby we feel that we owe a politician or we owe politicians for what they've done for us, and therefore we must vote for them, that is a very dangerous, sort of trend in any society. A politician comes to serve, and if they are at a point where people feel that there's a need for fresh ideas, we need to go on a different course that the persons that were serving were not going in, then it's necessary to make changes. But when we develop this idea that somehow there's a chiefdom that we have developed, and that those persons that are in those positions as chiefs within our society have a hereditary chiefdom where they can even pass on power from themselves to other people, and that those people that it's being passed on to don't have to prove themselves in any way. They just have to be sort of anointed by those chiefs. And that is in a kind of democracy where ideas are so important, and people having access to the ideas that are governing the country and making the decisions in regards to how power is distributed, how wealth is distributed, how education is used to acquire power and wealth and how it's important for education and social mobility and all of those sorts of things. It's dynamic, and therefore it can't be hereditary, any position of leadership in a society, because the society is dynamically changing all the time. And how do we get it across to the people that although I may have done a favor for them, and I don't ever try to remember what I've done for people as a politician or as a person, in cases where I have, and because I think that was my job. I don't say, well, I did this or I did that all the time, and maybe I don't do that often enough to remind people of what I've done. But I think it's what you're supposed to do. And it should never be that we have to keep people in office simply because of what they did yesterday. It's about what they will do tomorrow, what they will do today.
Today.
Today. And we hire new people because we want new jobs done. We have a different agenda. Does the agenda stay the same in a district like West Bay? Is it all the same? I've seen that society for a long time, from the time I was a boy. And my daughter used to go to West Bay, and we used to enjoy West Bay. It was the most beautiful, most calm, most peaceful, tranquil society that I have ever experienced in my life. From the time we got to that house where we could see the white sand and the conch shells, and everything was so neatly organized and kept, we know we were entering a little paradise. And we were so happy that my father was respected in the district, and we would get invited. And it was always a pleasure. Now today, West Bay, the kind of esteem that West Bay had, the kind of prestige that West Bay had, and the kind of privilege that West Bayers had as being West Bayers in the Cayman Islands, because of the respect and the way in which the district was kept and maintained, not because of the political power of any politician, but because of the collective will of the people, and the way in which the people worked so hard, and they showed their strength on the ships, and bringing the turtle and butchering the turtle and doing all the other things that they did to make them important. So when we find a society that is to a certain extent fallen asunder because the collective spirit is not there, and the burden of carrying the society lies on one or two families or one or two people or one or two politicians, and it's no longer a collective society which accepts equal responsibility for the stability and the progress of the society, then we know that something has gone wrong, and the people that we must hold accountable for this must be the leaders that have assumed the position in Parliament, in the parliaments of our country. So I want to, at some particular point, and I'm not, I mean, I like I said, I've worked with Mr. McKeever Bush, and I could tell you that he's been one of the greatest people to work with. He has been one of the people who have given me most consideration in this country. I would never deny what Mr. McKeever Bush has done. But I know also that Mr. McKeever Bush needs good people with him. And I know that Mr. McKeever Bush didn't have a yes man in me. He didn't have a yes man in Linford Pearson. He didn't have a yes man in Roy Borden and Gilbert McLean and Juliana Conner. And we all worked together and we accomplished things. So politicians don't need control over the people that they are bringing along with them. They need to just bring people along with them that will strengthen whatever qualities the people have recognized in them as being worthwhile.
Yes, sir.
And I would like to see that what happens is that Mr. Bush use what is left of his life and his power to raise up a new generation of politicians in West Bay that are not hungry for anything else but to service the people, to work for the people, because he can pass that lesson on and he can give the country a chance. I want to see that at the end of the day, regardless of where I stand and regardless of what happens to me, that we have a country where we have people who are working to uplift our people, because our people are being pushed down so low and pushed down so hard that many have broken on the way down, the fall. Like we read in the Bible about the fall and what caused the fall. We're experiencing that in our country, and we need to become again social uplifters of our people, so that they cannot just stay as social clients of politicians, but they become people who are independent within the society, because they are workers, because they are business people, and because they are fathers and mothers who understand the difficulties of parenting, but have come to a point where they have been assisted in coming to grips with those types of problems, so they're not just the problems of the prisons and the social services and the other psychiatrists and social workers in the society, but they can jointly assist in the rearing of our children, in the disciplining of our children, the correction of them.
Yes, but I always appreciate your contribution, and it sparks, much dialogue, and it also resonates with what others have shared. Dr. Frank, maybe one day we can have that meaningful discourse as you sit across the table from me, and we can engage it. But thank you very much for your comments, sir.
Thank you.
All right,
thank
blessings.
you very much.
Amen.
God bless.
God bless. Let's take a couple of more calls, man. Good afternoon. Thanks for listening, and more important, thank you for calling and sharing. Hello, good afternoon. Mr. Fox, what says thou?
Dear Starlet.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
You sound like you're not hearing me. I'm hearing you.
Well, I am hearing you now, but I didn't just then. Yes,
because
sir.
You didn't click the button when you said it.
Yeah, but perhaps what I need to do is change my seat so I can sit next to the button that clicks instead of being in this section all by myself.
No, maybe that's the best place for you. Because anything go wrong, then I can't save you.
Well, I appreciate you looking out for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would believe you right there.
Yeah, friends like you, I'm glad, boy.
Who needs enemies? Yeah. I just called to put my voice to two things. First of all, when is Radio Cayman going to get this, or the government going to get Radio Cayman antenna thing up here on the BRAC fix, so we can get back the two stations at the normal points where they're supposed to be?
Well, let me inquire. I can tell you, though, even without even any investigation, that we have a diligent team here who, as expeditiously as possible, always respond, whether it's on the BRAC, but in particularly when it's on the BRAC, to make sure the service is there. So maybe I can get a quick response for you before the program closes out as a definitive answer, but it will be, it is to hand.
Yes, but I'm telling you, we cannot get no more 93. You're coming in on 91 now.
Okay.
And I called in last week and spoke about it and said switch it round because we couldn't hear your show.
Okay.
I called someone and I left a message, and the next day it was on.
Okay.
And it's still on now. We still can't hear 93. So I don't see why Cayman BRAC always got to be getting the last lump of everything.
In this instance,
though. No disrespect to you.
Yes, sir.
I'm talking to the government.
Yes, sir.
Not to the staff of Radio Cayman, to the Cayman Island government and the two representatives for the BRAC and Liquor Cayman.
Yes,
Instead of I hear it in proper language.
That's just the thing, you see. We don't always appreciate sometimes how something affects someone, partly because we are not, affected by it on a regular basis. And sometimes we need to be reminded of how important that thing is, and for us, and I'm glad to know that without fair contradiction, when it comes to our programming and our accessibility across the three islands in particular, even the internet, so that it can be reached, whether in the building across the street or whether in the continent, further afield, that we have that service there available. So I know there's a diligent, deliberate approach at ensuring the programming is always accessible.
Yes, well, I just hope they hurry up and get it fixed. And one last thing, can I go hold it like the last one out? The Creek Post Office been closed now for over a month, but they're doing repairs and things.
Mm-hmm.
You got to open your post box, you can look in, nothing being done.
Mm-hmm.
You call up, they're not an answer. And we paid our money for the year.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you go to watching place when you go to something, you can't understand what the person's saying.
Okay, well.
All right, I said it, not you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you did. You did.
So they can always come to me. And I said, Cayman Island government, get that post office fixed. People pay their money for the boxes to get the things right when they want to go and get it, when they can, not when they must. That's what you have post box for.
Right.
So, on a hurry up and get it done, including the two black representatives. I'm hoping to listen. And Governor, if that offends you, well, tough luck too.
Okay.
Great. Thanks for your time.
You're most welcome, sir. Thank you
Have
for
a
yours.
good day.
God bless,
Bye.
sir. All right, Mr. Fox, can we take the other caller? What do you think? No, we got to take a break. Yeah. I never refuse to remember who's in charge. And today, it's the guy in the seat that occupies mostly with the presence of Susan. But let's pause and take a break. Today, all of the callers, if you will be gracious, hang on. We'll get back to you right away.
Maintaining a strong mind and body through sports and general healthy living is a good course of action. But what about your spiritual man, your inner man? He has to be awakened, fed, exercised, strengthened, and led according to the will of God. So, have you heard the call? I'm evangelist Brother Joseph Joey Ebanks, and I'm inviting you to worship Wednesday and Thursday nights at 7:30. We are bringing the Word of God to our communities as Jesus commanded. Faith comes by hearing. So come and hear. Bring your own chair or simply park and listen to the Word of God from your vehicle, covering the Cayman Islands with the Word of God, one community at a time.
Have you heard the call? We'll be in central Bodentown by the post office October the 21st and 22nd.
JN money card. When my land up a JN, me get the money card with them. Just show them your ID and give them your TRN. Go and use at the ATM or swipe instead then. And when you need more cash, and make your family send it in a flash. From abroad to card, get the JN Money Card. It's safe, convenient, and free. JN Money Card only available and used in Jamaica. Call 345-945-2014 for details.
As the community continues to take precautions from COVID-19 and get ready for the hurricane season, it is important to also protect our environment, which ultimately helps us live healthier, happier lives. Let's always remember proper disposal of masks and other PPE, as with your normal garbage. Avoid littering and do not include any trash in your recycling. Protect yourselves and keep our islands clean. For full guidance, visit www.deh.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. We've got 3 callers. We're going to take them all. We also have an update from our Deputy Director, Ms. Paulette, relative to the last caller's comments. And of course, we've been making those announcements as to what's been transpiring for the last week or so, but we'll give you an update. But let's go to our phones, though. Thanks for holding on. Thanks for sharing. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Afternoon, man. Afternoon. How are you today?
All right. I was listening to the debate in the Legislation Assembly about the issue of the regiment, the new army or whatever, soldiers, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's a good thing to have, the group of soldiers to defend this country, borders. But my concern is this. Number one, who is the one will be in charge or controlling this group of soldiers? If the governor, and I think this is very dangerous because if the governor, if Great Britain gone in a war with any country and the governor decided to send a group of those people to the war, I think this is need to be the premier of the country, the elected premier, should be the minister, create a ministry called the Ministry of Defense, whatever you call it. And all these soldiers have to be under the elected premier of this country. And those soldiers have all to be Caymanians, not to bring somebody who's non-Caymanian to be in those. They tell you how we will bring somebody Caymanian and they are not trained. And this is not truthful. You can bring a group of people, send them to a military academy. There is in Canada, in United States, in England, in Middle East. There is send them for a year for academy. Then you have 50 people or 100 people, whatever number you need, and then no rush to form this by bringing foreigners to be the army of this country. Send 100 Caymanian to a military academy for a year or two, and then after that you have 100 well-trained, well-professionals, and then you have all of them Caymanians.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the governor control this is a very danger, is a very serious, and I think it is not right to put the hand of the governor in this issue.
Okay.
The second thing, I am with the support of Mr. Anthony Eden. He did speak in the Legislation Assembly that we have to prepare for independence, and I think he is right, because I think this country not benefiting to have our relation with England is getting worse and worse. We know this gay marriage, and then the high spending of dollar and cents by the premier, the governor office. I think their budget is by million or something. I think it is very high number of money that the governor office spent. I don't know why we need to spend all of this money on 5-6 people. We call one of them the governor, and the rest is working in the governor office. Millions of dollars being spent in that office, and we not benefiting something good. We getting decision against the will of the people of this country. What is the benefit? We have a governor who is going in against the will of the people of this country. And I thought that we get in every time we get, the only time we get a good governor, they don't keep him in Cayman too long, because he was trying to connect with the people. He was trying to visit every home. He was trying to see what is the needs of the Caymanian people. But this governor is sitting there doing everything against the will of the people of this country. And he is playing the card of a dictatorship against the will of the people of this country. And he is getting, I see him, is the worst in all governors we get in the history of this island. We never get a worse than him, because he is taking decisions, and he knows that the Caymanian people not happy, not satisfied with those decisions, and he don't care much. And we have to spend millions of dollars in this governor office budget, and then we have to take decisions against our will.
Mm-hmm.
What is I'm asking the Honour Premier and the members of Legislation Assembly to vote that the powers of this regiment have to be in the hand of the elected government of this country, and they have to make sure that those soldiers not to go out of the border of this country. They have no business out of the border of this country. This is very, very, very dangerous. Could bring enemies to this country. We don't need those enemies.
All right.
We need the peace always to stay here.
Right. Well, I appreciate it, man. And I don't want to dismiss you. We want to get the other callers. Anything else you want to share that's pressing?
No,
or
I just
right.
Dwayne wants to say one thing.
Yeah.
Election is coming.
Mhm.
I think we need to see new faces in the House. Like young people like Kenneth Bryan and those age group.
Mhm.
And we need to see those people who working hard. I see Kenneth doing a very great job. I always appreciate his contribution, and I think there is people who from the old politicians who I think they should continue, like Mr. Anthony Eden and others who try to contribute and do well. And I think this country needs some new faces in the front, which I see PPM did put Roy McCarter to be the leader of the party, and I think I have something to say about this, but not today.
All right, man. Well, we'll hear you when you share it. All right.
All right.
All the best to you, my friend. All the best. Well, if our callers are there, we're happy to hear. Let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. How does one follow these last three?
Gracefully.
I don't know nothing about that one.
Yes, ma'am.
My contribution is just the difference between a splitter and a fritter. I don't know where you get the last one from. Fritter. Fritter. You don't live down in the heart of West Bay no more, over. Go visit some old people. I gone.
But you'll be back, God's willing.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And I got tired to see my face.
Nope. You stay young and you stay focused. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye. Can we take one final call? Welcome and good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Pretty good.
Oh, man, listen. If you don't mind, you'll be the final voice for today, and what a wonderful way to sort of close out the show. So, talk to us.
Well, it would be nice if it was the final voice in LA.
Well, only if that final voice was the one that we're going to make the meaningful last-end decision.
Well, I've been listening to the broadcast of the legislature, and contrary to what Amjad said, is that I don't believe it should be in the hands of the elected officials. You imagine your political adversary being backed up by a military? Come on, man.
How would you, okay, so that those who may be just joining or who may not be quick to take up what you're sharing. So we have it where if we were hearing the deputy leader of the opposition question the different sections of the proposed bill and the direction, as I understood it, to be under His Excellency or the office of the governor, right? And he's saying that's maybe questionable. And then Amjad is saying, well, it should be under a politically elected person. You're saying, well, that's questionable. So, under whose command and authority should this thing fall?
The role of the military should be properly described in law, and it should be autonomous. The goals should be very clear.
Okay.
It's not an institutional. They wouldn't have an institutional position. Their position would be in the best interest of the Cayman Islands. It wouldn't be like how you read in the bill where it says in the best interest of the regiment if the governor feels that, he wants to bring in a person from anywhere in the world by passing immigration immigration law. That's all nonsense.
Okay.
Because one second.
No. Go ahead. Sorry.
When you think about the best interests of the regiment,
Mm-hmm.
and when you think about how the regiment, the bill was drafted originally to basically say that everything is at the discretion of the governor, then you have to ask yourself, well, what would the interests of the regiment be if it's at the discretion of the governor?
Mm-hmm. Well, some would even
whatever he dreams.
Yeah, some would, and I've heard a few sort of, share this understanding that sometimes the sitting parliamentarians, but parliamentarians of the past, would express frustration that they were hoping to get a piece of legislation drafted so that it can go out for public consultation in order for it to be discussed and maybe even implemented. But given the amount of demand on the legislative drafters, there isn't enough time, enough resources to get all these bits and pieces drafted, even the proposed amendments to existing laws. So a few have said, well, how come is it that we've got two major pieces of legislation brought to the fore seemingly very quickly? Is it that it jumps the queue, or is it being drafted externally and then submitted for approval?
There will always be an excuse why the public should not be consulted. Always be an excuse. And if the government really wanted to consult with the public, they could do it.
But even so, in the absence of that unwillingness to consult, the fact that you call, as an example, you call your restaurant, your favorite restaurant, to make an order, and they have an automated system. Hey, stay on the line. We're going to take your order, but you're 5 in the queue. We're taking the customer before you, and you wait, and then you're 4, you're 3, then eventually it's you, unless you disconnect, right? So if in the legislative drafting process, if the allegations made by others in the past that, the reason why we haven't brought this piece of legislation, is that we're waiting for them to get time to get around to drafting it. And they've been waiting a year or a month or 10. But lo and behold, in short order, we've got this, not just a massive piece of legislation.
So I think this particular bill, it's, it's an opportunity for the government to leave a lasting impression on the country. And I don't think they want to leave it until the last minute, not knowing how long it'll take to make it happen. And it's getting close to winding down. And so I think they just want to get it done because they think that it's something that's great. And I think the reason why it's being brought is because our local politicians recognized after Ivan that when the state of emergency was declared and the power shifted from the local government to the governor, we saw that the governor was actually incapable of governing the country. And so what happened in this last national emergency with this virus is that a state of emergency was not declared. It was described as us being in having an emergency situation, but there was no official proclamation published in the Gazette saying that we were in a state of emergency. And the reason for that is because if they had done that, the power would go back to the governor, and they remember what happened in Hurricane Ivan.
Right.
So they didn't want that. And so what we see then is that this idea that somehow we need the British in order to govern us properly and all that kind of stuff is really nonsense.
Okay.
But that does not mean that we need a military.
Right. So what do we need?
Well, what we need is good governance.
Okay.
We need, Mr. Ezra Miller says it all the time. He says you need to have a regular schedule for the Legislative Assembly. What usually happens is instead of having a regular schedule, that things can be put into a schedule, and you know when things are coming up in an orderly fashion, and that you can have time to do consultation, you can schedule all of that, have it occur,
Right.
and you can know well in advance when these things are coming up. That's not what we do. What we do is we pick the pieces that we want to bring to the legislature, and we bring them and we cram them in, and then we suspend the rules of the legislature so that we can go way into the night and debate it and try to just cram everything into one short session.
Mm-hmm. But as I listen to you, I mean, I'm thinking as you shared about the state of emergency, there are those who have shared that, in the last few months, potentially one of the reasons why that may not have been declared is that would have triggered, the implementation of the price gouging legislation, right? Because presumably, but if we were to also sort of look at the now discussion within the Legislative Assembly about this military, could we not, if part of its premise, and this is what I understood to be sort of its main focus, is there's going to be positioned to respond in times of natural disasters. So another Hurricane Ivan or something else occurs, we will have this thing. So if that is the thing, and this is my personal view, I was influenced by the sentiments of a number of our elderly people who have seen and witnessed historical occurrences, some even wartime efforts, and understanding what that service and sacrifice entails, right? But the question I have to ask then, one, should not the training of these people be more in keeping with maintaining the continuity of a society relative to the safety of this water supplies, of the assistance to people because their homes have been destroyed, as opposed to skillfully training them to take a rifle and kill somebody because they're a sharpshooter from 50,000 miles out, however friggin' far they can fire a gun, right? That bothers me that we're going to move from what was relatively a safe society where guns weren't freely visible by our uniformed personnel to one where they're evident in our supermarkets. If we have a Coast Guard and they're patrolling the high seas to ensure boarding is safe or to prevent people from illegally transshipping our shores, would it not be better to give that resource there? But
go ahead.
But even beyond all of that, why not train a cadre of skilled people in diplomacy so that in addition to the skill sets of making water safe to drink, being able to quickly, safely, and effectively and efficiently clear roadways, rescue people from, tumbled buildings, get the schools reopened, and ensure food supplies and medical supplies are readily to hand, why not train that group in diplomacy so that they can assist in, mediation efforts elsewhere? Maybe they can become more helpful, not just in resolving conflicts, regional or international, but even conflicts within here. I mean, a 50 group of people with high-powered machine guns and war tanks and urban commandos might be able to subdue a couple of restless natives who are just interested in ensuring that, we get back to order. Now, what is it that we're trying to achieve? So don't give people BS.
Well, I want to hasten to say that I don't have a military at all,
mm-hmm.
and especially not at this time.
But that is that thing as well. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's my alarm.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is that first of all, I don't think we should be increasing our spending at this particular time,
mm-hmm.
given the financial situation we're in. Some of the rebuttals that I get is that, well, it's such a small percentage of our budget. And I'm thinking in my head, well, it doesn't matter what size your budget is. It could be $50 billion.
Mm-hmm.
If you're spending more than you're making, you're still going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And so right now, according to the Minister of Finance, we're on average incurring a budget deficit of $25 million per month.
$1 million a day, right?
That's right. And so essentially, what I'm saying is that forget about the argument that it's a small portion of the budget, and think about the argument that by establishing a regiment, what you're doing is increasing the amount of deficit that we have.
You're widening that.
Right. And so I think that's not wise. Not that I disagree with the idea of defense for the country, but
the timing.
Timing, but also, see, the part of the bill says that the regiment is for internal security, and I don't believe that we should be using a military for internal security. That's the role of the police.
Yeah, but even. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, my apologies.
To your
yes.
to the things you've raised so far.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't do well with tweets.
Yeah.
So with the internal security, I think that should be the police that deal with internal security, and the police department has a USG unit, and if they want to enhance that for some contingency purposes, or even give additional training to all police officers as a contingency for certain events, I would be more. I would like that better because that's the police. That's the role of the police. The role of the military is not to be as diplomatic as police officers.
Right.
And I agree that we should be properly funding the Coast Guard and Border Patrol to deal with issues on our borders. Because the truth of the matter is that at this point in time, who's really going to attack the Cayman Islands? Right? Think about this for a second.
But
the United Kingdom is a NATO country.
The
U.S. is a NATO country. And NATO countries assist each other. Okay? So people would rebut that and say, but wouldn't it be better if we could take care of our own security? Yes, it would. But the truth of the matter is that we can't run a country properly unless we have financial independence.
Right.
And right now, we're not in a terrible situation.
Not yet.
But you're right, not yet. But what the problem is that we have an uncertain future. And so the government would be unwise to bank too much on the idea that there's going to be a vaccine by the end of this year for the virus, and therefore everything should be good, and then we can get back to normal next year.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we should do that. I think that's unwise.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, we shouldn't be raising an army now. But then the politician will say to me, but so many Caymanians have already signed up for this thing. And I would say, well, they signed up for something that wasn't established lawfully.
Right.
And as a result of that, what we need to take away from this is that if the governor believes in good governance and rule of law, we should not be doing things out of order. And you should bring the legislation and you should establish it legally before you establish something in practice. And the idea that we should go back and make right something which is illegal, that should not be what we're doing.
But as I listen to you, and I say this, maybe the danger is that you have people who are willing to think. And as I'm very grateful to Mr. Carl for granting this extra time, and this is where democracy comes into play, that we can have this engagement. But if we look at a virus, now I'm not a virologist, didn't really care much for biology in school as much as I did for physics and chemistry. But a gun isn't going to kill the virus, right? So an army is going to help us in that sense, at least maybe. But as I listen to you, and we look at our friends and family in Jamaica who share with us that they have a tiered response to situations requiring security, and the different, of level of response to finally, you descend in the big guys with the mask to quell something that the first responders weren't able to address. Now, if we think of the urban commandos as they've become in the U.S. situation, and the increasing calls for police reform almost globally, and we think back to Sir Robert Peel's sort of mantra with respect to what policing, should be. I don't think his words, however long ago, have any less value, if not probably have greater value today. So the question is, are we looking for policing to become urban commandos and train as this quasi-military, or are we looking for these people who can walk our streets with that, sort of notion of the English Bobby, where, the community knows the police and the police knows the community, and there's this healthy partnership because you have the competence, the integrity, the respect, and the respectability of the uniform, the competence of the officer, and the trust of the community. Maybe that's where our efforts should rely. My friend, I recognize the time, but any final quick comment you want to share with us? Hello, sorry, there? Okay. All right. Well, to all and each, thank you very much for your thoughts. I trust that what has been shared and said isn't seen with any sort of political motivation, nor interpreted with any malice, and certainly shared with any disrespect. But if we are not in a democracy, then we're not able to think. And if we're not able to think, then we have to question, well, what is our purpose? So if we share openly, responsibly, and as we engage with the sense that we want to have a healthy, a stable society that allows each and every to share a comment that hopefully will inspire us to think and act reasonably and rationally, well, maybe we'll move forward in a healthy way. Sometimes, they say the greatest exercise of power is restraint. And sometimes it says that in order to ensure that we have a way forward, you have to be willing to stand in the gap. Maybe it is that time. Tomorrow, Mr. Fox, is Friday. Is that the plan? And I would invite you to join Mr. Art Corner in the morning for the record. Always a great show to listen to. And you get to learn something, you be reminded of other things that you may have forgotten. Come back for our talk today. In the slot, we have the excellent company of Mr. Loxley Banks as a part of the continuing CI Retro Talk Today series. And, listen, learn. Maybe we'll even laugh and love a little bit more together. Until then, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
The deadline for the Part of Them nominations has been extended